Good morning. Welcome to Talking Pop Culture with Jake D. Bright and early this Friday for a live review and reaction stream to the season finale of The Boys. So, catching folks up. Last week, we of course got the very, very nasty and serious woke drop on us in episode 7, where it was made pretty gosh darn clear that people like me were, the evil villains out there. And I have to admit, I was not anywhere near as excited about the season finale of this show as I was going into the season. I just spent most of the season thinking like, okay, they're doing all right. It's not so bad. We can live with this. It's going to be okay. And then of course we had episode 7 drop on us, which was not particularly good for those of us who use the hashtag of the fandom Menace out there. But episode 8, I will tell you that the season finale here was certainly a lot better than episode 7. It was more in line with what we saw the rest of the season, which certainly was tolerable in terms of the wokeness and the agenda that was in this episode. It came back to be more of what I wanted to see from the boys, and it was certainly, it was a decent episode. I mean, I will give it out of 10, I'll put this one at about an 8. It really was a pretty good, solid episode that I was able to watch without feeling like a bunch of shit was getting rammed down my throat and being, intentionally wagged in my face about the show not being a part of, not liking me in general. So, sort of quick breakdown of what we saw in the episode today. It opens up with Homelander giving a PSA about supervillains, and they were talking about, it was basically a throwback to the old duck and cover nuclear bomb drills that they used to do in the 50s and the 60s. And, we did get our first bit of a piece of some light agenda thrown in where they, Homelander's given this talk about how their teacher's going to be armed and has an authorized firearm. And, that was definitely a bit of a political shot. It wasn't overly awful, but, that was in there right there in the first scene. We break out and we've got this meeting with Grace and Congresswoman Newman, whom I call Tulsi, and with the Secretary of Defense, where they're talking about the plans of the president to release V into the populace. And so Compound V is going to be out there for all the people to use. And the Sec Def says that he agrees with Grace that Vought was behind all of this stuff, but, nothing he can do about it because the president's going to do what he's going to do, and the public opinion is what it is. Quick shot of seeing Becca escape. She's broken out of the Vought compound and headed somewhere, and she's got a knife in her hand. We see, then yet another escape where Starlight is sending her mom away to hide and, get her away from the danger that's certainly coming and that we're going to be building to in this episode. We get our first real shot of the boys of the episode next, where, Butcher says that he's basically planning to kill everybody, and they're prepping to, basically go to war with Vought and the Seven, so to speak. Huey, and Starlight beg him for a day to try to arrange something, and they take off to go do whatever it is that they've got planned. We get to see Stormfront and Homelander having a conversation back in Vought Tower. Stormfront and Homelander both say that it wasn't them who popped all the heads at the committee meeting, and they think that it was Stan Edgar, which, it makes a lot of sense, right? He might have something planned to try to protect Vought, which is certainly sensible and within his character, I think, from what we've seen overall. Then we cut back to Huey and Starlight. They're driving, and they are trying to recruit Queen Maeve to expose Homelander and Vought and to testify. And she basically tells him to F off, get out of here. I ain't going to help you guys. Becca then finds Butcher, tells him that they've taken the kid. And, you have a quick moment there with the two of them reunited again. And then we get a scene with Edgar and the guy who's in charge of the Scientology cult, where he's talking about getting Deep and A-Train back into the Seven. Edgar agrees to take one of them, and he's not going to take A-Train because, Stormfront is an ist, and therefore she's got a problem with him and won't let him in. So they agree to put the Deep back into the Seven. A-Train, of course, overheard this conversation, and he's pissed. Forgive me, it is early in the morning, and I have not had enough coffee yet. All right, so we see the boys and Becca getting together, and they're making the plan for how to get a hold of the kid, get Ryan away from Homelander and Stormfront. And they're putting together their plan and getting everything ready to go. And then Edgar gets a call from the Butcher. We get to see our last scene of whom I've always called Kathleen Kennedy, who was the lady who, thought she was in charge of the Seven, but of course Homelander was really mostly in control of her. And I think that my thought that she's a Kathleen Kennedy stand-in was somewhat validated in this episode, because Stormfront referred to her apartment where she's got Ryan as quite literally the Death Star. So, for me, that was a little bit of a kicker. It was funny because, I've been referring to Ashley as Kathleen Kennedy all season, and, throwing that reference in seemed to sort of confirm that was who that they had styled her after. And Stormfront and Homelander decide to take Ryan out for a little field trip, which they go to Planet Vought, which is like a Planet Hollywood, and go out for lunch. Stormfront and Homelander get mobbed by their fans, and it's too much for Ryan. It overwhelms him. He's acting like it's bothering his super hearing. And Homelander and Ryan take off. They just bug out of there. Huey and Starlight are discussing what they're going to do after their failure to recruit Maeve. And bam, A-Train shows up. And he hands them the Scientology cult's file on Stormfront. And it's got everything. It's got her being the wife of Vought. It's got her with the Yahtzees, her whole history, and, her ists and her isms. I mean, it's laid bare. It's got everything that anybody could want in order to reveal Stormfront's history. And he hands it over because he's pissed. He feels like they double-crossed him, and the problem was Stormfront, so he wants to solve that problem. So Butcher and Edgar then make a deal about what to do about the kid. And that deal is that when Butcher gets the kid, he's going to, call Vought, and they could send their troopers in to come collect the kid, and then he can get out of there. And because the kid is Edgar's contingency plan against Homelander. So they make a deal, and Edgar makes a very interesting comment. He's certainly fully aware of who Stormfront is, obviously. And he makes a comment. It was something to the extent of, it's all business. Not a surprising comment out of Stan Edgar, but, Giancarlo Esposito, as usual, excellent. Okay, we cut back to the cabin where Homelander's been keeping Ryan, and he tries to bond with him. He talks about how he can mentor him and tutor him. And the dossier then gets delivered to the boys, and this thing's gold. Butcher's looking through it, and, wow, he is absolutely thrilled. We get another quick cut back to the cabin where Homelander's attempting to train Ryan on how to use his laser eyes, and Ryan can't make the laser eyes work. And so Homelander just tells him, it's like, look, it helps if you think about somebody you hate. And this is, of course, some foreshadowing for later in the episode. Ryan tells him there's really not anybody that he hates, and he can't get the laser eyes to fire off. The boys arrive at Homelander's cabin. Very good. They fire off some Vought Sonics that, of course, mess with Homelander and Ryan's super hearing. So Homelander takes off to find out what the hell's going on with this sound. And, Butcher moves in to grab the kid with Becca. She introduces Butcher as her husband to the kid, and they bug out of there. And Butcher decides to go ahead and double cross Edgar, and he tells Mother's Milk to get Becca and the kid out of there. And then the Vought troops storm the cabin. They're not there, of course. Homelander returns, and it gets bloody. It gets a little bloody. Those Vought troops get slaughtered by Homelander. So Mother's Milk is trying to get Becca and the kid out of there, and Stormfront comes in and intercepts them, to say the least. So we get a girl power battle. So the female and Starlight decide that they're going to fight Stormfront and try to take her on. Maeve shows up unexpectedly, and these three ladies, they kick Stormfront's ass, and she takes off and bugs out of there because she was going to lose rather horribly. And then Butcher and Ryan, of course, and Becca are running. They're trying to get away from this while Stormfront's getting her ass kicked. She drops down right in front of them after she took off from getting beat, tries to kill Becca, and surprise, surprise, Ryan finds somebody he hates, and he leaves Stormfront looking rather like Anakin after he tried to screw with Obi-Wan. So, she is messed up, but she's not dead. She definitely didn't die. Completely incapacitated, missing limbs. Like I said, she's burned up like Anakin was after the Obi-Wan fight in Revenge of the Sith. Very, very similar look. And she's speaking German now because she's so messed up and out of it. But Ryan, of course, in his anger, also killed his mother, which, of course, produces problems. Homelander drops in, tries to take Ryan back, and Maeve arrives and shows him the blackmail film from the jet where back in season 1. And, threatens him and says, look, if you, you screw with these guys, you don't leave them alone. This video goes out and you're going to lose all your fans, and everybody in the whole world is going to know what a monster you are. And we, of course, learn what's the most important thing in the world of Homelander, and that's the adulation of the crowds. And so he reluctantly goes with it. And that's sort of the wrap of all the action that we've been building to all throughout season 2. There's, a bit of after action goes on. Stan Edgar's giving a press conference where he says V's not going to be released. Homelander gives a little speech about we are your heroes, blah, blah, blah. Talks about Starlight being reinstated. They blame everything on Stormfront, whom the contents of her dossier had been released and went all over social media, and everybody knows that she's a Yahtzee. And, of course, we had a little scene where you get a guy saying, I can't believe I have to say this, but Yahtzees are bad. Which, once again, that was another little subtle shot at people that, Kripke doesn't agree with politically. And blessedly, that was not too bad in this episode. I mean, there's a couple, 3 scenes, but they weren't awful like what we saw in the previous episodes. So, you know, I'll give them a little credit for that. At least they dialed that back some for the season finale. You know, you get a bit of a kissy scene between Huey and Starlight. You know, Butcher gives the kid Becca's St. Christopher medal that he'd carried. Grace takes the kid off and, you know, to some undisclosed location, lets Butcher know everybody's had charges dropped or pardoned, what have you, and that she has gotten funding through the new soup czar, which is revealed to be old Tulsi, Congresswoman Newman, and to set up a team to keep the soups in line. So it's almost like, I mean, my understanding is in the source comics, that was what they always were to begin with, but now it's kind of official. And, you know, she offers Butcher the job. He doesn't respond to her, but I think we can assume that because there is a season 3, obviously he's going to take it. Mother's Milk gets an opportunity to see his kids. And, you know, Frenchie and the female go dancing. Everybody's happy. Everything's all good. Homelander's standing on top of a tall building, taking care of himself, saying he can do whatever he wants. It's kind of a disturbing scene, to be honest with you. And then, you know, just when you think that they've got everything wrapped, they do drop their big tease for the setup to season 3 at the very, very end of this episode. The guy who's in charge of the Scientology cult, he gets he's on the line with Newman, and you know, he lets her know that he's got tons of other blackmail to take down dozens of soups, and he'd be happy to release it if she would expedite his tax-exempt status. And boom, homeboy's head pops. And then we pan to the camera just outside his window, and Tulsi was standing right there. She's the mysterious head popper, which for me came out of left field. That was not what I was expecting. So we have our probable season 3 villain revealed, and it's somebody that they set up as a hero of the people all through season 2. And it looks like she may be our season 3 villain. And then Huey in the final scene goes and gets a job from her because he wants to get out of the boys. So interesting setup for season 3 there. Pardon me one moment. I need more coffee. All right. Yeah, that's streaming fuel right there. Make it straight from the pot. I don't go and get it from some shop. So you know, overall, like I said, I give the episode an 8 out of 10. They had a few little agenda shots in it. It wasn't too bad, though, in comparison to what we saw the last week's episode. Action was pretty decent. Story was all right. And we get a real solid setup for where they're going to be taking this thing for season 3. So overall thoughts on the season. This was, I'm going to go with a season review number of a 7 out of 10 overall. Production quality was good. You got plenty of uses of, you know, the soups using their power. You had, you know, really good visual shots throughout. The story overall was decent, but, you know, we always had in the back of our mind the Kripke interview where he really talked about what he was planning when they wrote this. And it would be, it wouldn't be one of my streams about The Boys season 2 if I didn't play it. So by God, here's that Kripke interview.
It's a great question. We were really interested in exploring the idea of authority figures get the public really riled up with xenophobia and racism. Ultimately, the most dangerous people are like the white dudes standing next to you.
Yeah. And, one thing, we've seen the entire season now, and it was nowhere near as rough as I was anticipating after we saw that interview. Episode 7 was a giant middle finger to the Fandom Menace, to people who talked about finding their voice and fighting, a culture war just to keep our entertainment, without blatant political messaging that's beating you over the head. And for the most part, they kept it subtle. It was subtle again in episode 8. It was really just episode 7 that was really bad. So season 3, am I going to watch season 3? I will watch and review season 3, and we'll see where they go with it. From a story standpoint, I think they've definitely set up a good bridge into the next season, and they could very easily really step it up and make it an exciting season. If they continue to keep the politics limited in the hardcore messaging sense, I think it could still be enjoyable. And, 7 out of 8 episodes this season were. Is there wokeness throughout? Yes, there is. Definitely is. But they generally kept it in a way that wasn't repulsive to me and to most folks. So yeah, 7 out of 10 on the season, 8 out of 10 on this episode, and I will watch the next season. It was good enough to keep me. Had they done another episode in the finale like they did in episode 7, I would have checked out. They brought it back enough that I'm okay to stick going with it. But yeah, overall, I'll take it. Well, I appreciate you listening in this morning. If you're catching it on the replay and you listen to this long, please remember to like the video, share it with your friends on social media, and consider subscribing to the channel. I'm a new creator here on YouTube, and that's one of the best ways to help me reach a wider audience and talk with more folks and have better streams and more content going forward. Thank you.